Hello, and welcome to or back to my channel. I'm Kit, your friendly feminist cat lady spinster, and today we're going to talk about Paul, Morgan, and the Pope. That sounds like the title of a really bad movie, but so as you may or may not know, Pope Francis made remarks about people choosing pets over kids is selfish, and Paul and Morgan, although they are not Catholic, decided to make a video about it. And I watched it, I had some thoughts. Here we go.
Choosing pets over babies is selfish and diminishes us, says Pope. Down at the bottom it says, in a move likely to raise the hackles of millions of cats, dogs, and their human cohabitees, Pope Francis has suggested that couples who prefer pets to children are selfish.
There's just something really interesting about a man who has vowed to be celibate and thus have no children saying that people who don't have kids are selfish.
Woo! As we get into the next slide, I think it's fair because someone messaged me. I'm about to get into what happened over on Instagram. Someone messaged me and said, like, Paul, you're sharing something by the Pope. Are you a big Pope guy?
We're not Catholic and we're not big Pope people. We don't really know a ton.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like
about this Pope. We've heard things that we disagree with.
Some people, it's not even some people, like a good amount of people have called this Pope the woke Pope, more on the woke side. So
just like the word triggered, the word woke has been used so much it no longer means anything to me.
My grandparents who are Catholic would call him the woke Pope.
So your grandparents, even. I guess the reason I shared it is because I think we give credit where credit is due. If anyone says something that's really solid, even if we don't love the guy, we love him. We love everyone, but
You sure about that, Paul?
We can still recognize that. So the next, just kind of scrolling down in the same article, during a general audience at the Vatican, he said, "Today, we see a form of selfishness. We see that some people do not want to have a child. Sometimes they have one, and that's it, but they have dogs and cats that take the place of children."
I really don't understand this desire to shame people into behaving the way you want them to, especially when it has nothing to do with you. I mean, the Pope is not going to meet most of these children that he wants to be born. So I know that it's easier to make new members of a church than to convert people. But I mean, dude's 85, so it doesn't really have any effect on him. And it seems like another instance to me of religion poking its nose where it doesn't belong.
This may make people laugh, but it's a reality. He goes on to say, it says, pet keeping was a denial of fatherhood and motherhood and diminishes us, takes away our humanity, he said. The consequence was that civilization grows old without humanity because we lose the richness of fatherhood and motherhood, and it is the country that suffers.
So basically the Pope is concerned about the aging workforce? That seems kind of weird for a religious guy, but okay. But I think it's also important to note that, yeah, more women had more children back in the good old days, but those kids weren't exactly treated very well. Education was limited, they had to go to work very early, and it's not as though there were workplace protections for children. Not to mention the abysmal childhood and infant mortality rates. So, yeah, we have fewer kids now, but they have better lives.
We have a dog. We love Squishy. She's the best. We treat her like a little baby sometimes. But I know people who actually treat their dogs like human being babies. Like doggy daycare.
Please don't hate me. I am not a dog person, but it was my understanding that if dogs are left alone for too long, they can begin to become destructive, which is why people send them to doggy daycare. I could be totally wrong.
Because they don't want them to be alone while they're at work, taking them everywhere on vacations, everywhere, whatever.
Don't people theoretically get a dog because, they like the dog and want to spend time with it? So it kind of makes sense that they'll take it on vacation. Also, I think dog boarding, I've looked into boarding my cats before, and that is expensive. So it also might be more cost effective to just bring your dog with you when you go on vacation.
Feeding them human food, whatever.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a dog person, but wouldn't a dog owner mostly feed their dog food because it's formulated to make sure the dog is getting the specific nutrients it needs that it can't get from human food? And also, I feed my cats human food from time to time. That does not mean I'm treating them like a human. It means I'm giving them a treat.
And I think and I know some couples who are younger who have decided that like this is enough for them, just having dogs. And to me, that's sad and worrisome.
So these couples you know have decided that pets are enough for them and they don't, for whatever reason, want kids. And that makes you sad for them. Why?
And just so ridiculous.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you don't want kids and you decide not to have kids, that is not ridiculous, that is smart. And it occurs to me that that could be used to say that I hate children or whatever, so I'm going to disclaim here that no, I do not hate children. If you want kids, go ahead and have kids. The main takeaway here is to not let yourself be pressured or shamed into doing something that is not right for you or your life.
I see why the Pope is saying this.
Yeah, so I saw the Pope say that. I shared it over to my Instagram. Pull that up real quick, Morgan. And all I said was, Pope Francis coming in hot, kudos.
Breaking news, Catholic Pope says people should have children. Whoever would have imagined him saying something so radical?
It's, again, pretty much the same headline as what you guys were already seeing. And yeah, I can already see it, even just reading some of the comments in the live chat. There is a good amount of people that disagree with the Pope. I was surprised to see pretty quick a number of comments, that even people saying, like, I normally agree with the Pope, but I disagree with him saying this. He shouldn't have said this.
Yeah, it's kind of like this 80-something-year-old man that you don't know has invited himself into your bedroom and has decided to inform you that your reproductive decisions are selfish and are destroying the world. I can't see why people would have a problem with that.
Which is funny because I feel like Morgan and I are completely the opposite. Normally,
Right.
we're not in agreement. I mean, not that we follow him closely, but there's been a number of things where we're like, eh. But then to see this, it's kudos. That's what I said, kudos.
So, I mean, Morgan mentions that some members of her family are Catholic, so she at least can't be too surprised that a Catholic Pope wants people to have more kids, right?
I thought there was one, I mean, other than just people saying, I just don't agree, don't think he should have said it. Couples should not feel pressure to have kids, which it's an interesting position. I feel like biblically there's more precedence, there's more of a
Right.
of an encouragement and a spurring couples on to have kids. Like that seems, and we can quote several different scripture verses. Overall, I'm not saying that the Bible says every couple you are sinning against God if you refuse to have kids. I'm not going to go that far, but I think it is. You look at literally Genesis, the very beginning. What's the verse? How does it
Be
go?
fruitful and multiply.
Yeah, God tells them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it.
Well, you know, I think we've done that. We've subdued the earth so well that we've made some species go extinct. Good job, humans. But I mean, really, the Bible was written at a specific time, in a specific place, and a lot of it does not really work for the modern day, clearly considering how many pieces are conveniently left out when people are deciding what to adhere to and what to discard.
Someone left this comment, so I actually shared it on my Instagram. I thought this kind of comment was indicative of, sadly, I'm just going to say sadly because I do think it's sad, but indicative of a growing number of young people that would oppose the Pope's sentiments here.
Okay.
Morgan, are you able to read that?
They say, this is so interesting because I have felt that God is calling us to have more pets and fewer children because of overpopulation and dwindling resources, calling us to ensure that we are loving God's earth and God's creatures. I don't often disagree with the Pope, but yeah, I would on this occasion. Huh.
I'll be honest, I actually felt like that might be satire at first, but it's not.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me not to laugh at I've been feeling like God is calling us all to have more pets and less kids. This whole overpopulation thing is a myth, in my opinion.
Can someone please explain to me why we should take Morgan's opinion over, science?
And let's play this video of Elon Musk really quick because that goes right along with just the whole overpopulation lie / myth / thing that people are believing.
Well, and there's a few angles that you can kind of hit in response to her message.
Mhm.
And me and her are cool. I shared that and she wrote and was like, thanks for sharing my thing. It's good to be able to have healthy disagreements. I appreciate that. But yeah, like there's strictly the scientific response to her statement, which that's a big topic that we could talk about for a long time, and we're not experts, but here is someone who we would both consider very smart,
Yeah.
our very own Elon Musk on the topic.
I have to admit, I'm a bit surprised to hear them say Elon Musk is their own because he's been divorced twice and has a child out of wedlock.
I can't emphasize this enough. There are not enough people. And I think one of the biggest risks to civilization is the low birth rate and the rapidly declining birth rate. It is, and yet so many people, including smart people, think that there are too many people in the world and think that the population is growing out of control. It's completely the opposite. Please look at the numbers. If people don't have more children, civilization is going to crumble. Mark my words.
Yeah.
Mark his words.
Mark his words.
And why are we listening to Elon Musk? He's a businessman. If more people have more kids, they'll be in more need of work and thus can't really afford to be too picky about how much said work pays or what benefits it offers because they have to feed their children. And of course, the more people there are, the easier it is to replace one worker for another. Before they start getting any fancy ideas that, they deserve to be paid more and deserve benefits and paid time off and crazy things like that.
Yeah, I think that that's very interesting. I appreciate him being bold and saying that because you do hear from mainstream media, there are too many people on this planet. We're destroying the planet because we're having too many babies, yada, yada, yada. But if you look at the numbers, that's not the truth.
I think Morgan is forgetting that, humans are born, but that's not it. We are born, so we take up space. We need food, which takes up more space. We need to be fed, educated. We need to have some form of employment. We need a way to get to said employment. And that all just takes up resources. It's not just that we're here, it's all the stuff that comes with us. And especially in countries like the US, we also come with a ton of stuff because we love stuff. Look behind me, we love stuff.
And, I think this just goes right along with people who are like, we're not in Adam and Eve's time. We don't have to be fruitful and multiply. Well, again, overpopulation is not a thing, and people need to chill out with that.
What planet is this woman living on? We need to chill out with that. We should chill out being concerned about our planet. We only have one, Morgan. If we fuck this one up, we don't get a do-over. I forget. She's a very religious Christian, so it doesn't matter because however bad this planet gets, there's their reward waiting in heaven. But doesn't the Bible say something about being stewards of the earth? Being a steward is not taking what you can and turning the earth into a barren wasteland. If I create a planet and I said, be a steward of it, and people were like, so you mean pillage it until there's nothing left, right? I would be so disappointed.
You mind pulling up her comment again?
Yeah. I also just don't think that, I think we give people or create this idea that God loves pets and animals more than he loves humans, and that's just not true.
I don't know. Seems pretty bold to me to assume to speak on, what God thinks, believes, wants, but, it's just me.
At all. If that were true, there'd be a Bible for the animals to read.
Well, from the beginning it says that, Adam, man is created to be above the animals, fill the earth, subdue the earth, rule over the animals.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time since my confirmation classes, but I don't remember anything being said about rolling over the animals. And it just really concerns me that Paul so casually says that and Morgan agrees. You don't have to treat pets like they're human, but you should have a basic consideration for them. They say you could take the measure of a person by how they treat those below them, and I say that goes for pets as well. And if you think it's okay to mistreat a pet because you think in some way it's below you, do you think God put animals on the earth to be like human playthings? I'm pretty sure that he meant we should take care of them. Yes, we can think, we can speak, we can communicate with each other, we can invent things, but that doesn't mean we should treat them as though they're below us. And how can you mistreat something that is helpless and dependent on you? I don't understand.
Here's a comment.
Yeah, and I was encouraged to see once I shared this comment, and I can read up at the top, you see how I responded. I was encouraged to see a lot of people push back with Bible verses. There was definitely a good amount of pushback. I wrote and said, I'm surprised how many people have written me saying they disagree with the Pope on this. Regarding this particular response, what the girl said, no hate, but I believe this line of thinking is a product of a public school education, and I'd go further to say just a liberal education all the way up through college. public school education and the social justice-y humanistic push that having less kids is loving your neighbor, loving the planet, and even loving God.
It's so interesting to me that they get to interpret the Bible whatever way they want, and that's the right way. But if someone else has an interpretation that differs from theirs, well, they're clearly wrong and they have been indoctrinated by a public school education.
Yeah, her response, again, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but reading this started by saying she's felt God calling us to have more pets, have fewer children.
And why can that not be true for her? Not everyone feels called to have kids. And really, if you don't want kids, don't have them.
Actually, right before we hopped on the live, sometimes there's little conversations going, and this isn't like, I like seeing conversations happening with differing viewpoints, but I did think this one was interesting. And Morgan, I don't think you even saw this yet.
Yeah, having children and then neglecting them is selfish. It's not selfish to not have children if you know you're not going to be good parents. Let people have pets instead. It's none of the people's business.
It says it's none of the Pope's business, but either way, it's still true.
And I found that really interesting because I think that is a lot of people's views.
Yeah. Well, the person right below him said it's selfish because you could change and be a good parent instead.
That's what I thought was so interesting. This person is pretty much saying it's selfish because if you know you're not going to be a good parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's just literally putting yourself in this box of, I mean, it really is victimhood.
Right.
Almost.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, how many people could say that about literally anything? I know I'm not going to be a good wife, so I'm never getting married. I know I'm not going to be a good husband, okay? But how many people actually think like that? They don't. Or I know I'm not going to be a good employee, so I'm never going to work.
Okay, well, Morgan tried, but I don't find any of this convincing. For one, in the US, you can't simply say, I won't be a good employee, so I won't work. Because unless you have a really good trust fund, you're going to have to work in one way or another. And marriage is not comparable to having a kid because, for one, you can talk about your fears with your partner. You can go to therapy alone and with your partner to work things out. And if you do try it, you can get divorced. With a kid, however, well, for one, you are creating a whole new person to bring onto this planet, which is a big thing, and not just in the fact that, you know, you are responsible for making them into a good human, but also if you have failings as a parent, your kid is not really going to understand that, and that can set them up for issues later on in life. And I personally think that unless you want to have kids, you should not have kids. Don't do it out of like wanting to carry on your family name or bloodline, or because your parents want you to, or because you think you should. You should only do it if you really want to be a parent. It's just not the same. You can't compare working or marriage to having a kid.
Like, that just is a goofy train of thought.
Well, and if you're a Christian especially, I'm not sure if this person that wrote that comment is identifying as claiming to be a Christian, but if you're a Christian, that type of thinking, it's kind of taking God out of it. It's taking the growth as a believer out of it. But also, I would say wisdom, in my perspective, would be you don't get married if you feel like you're going to be a bad, if you, which I think some people just use that as an excuse. I just am not very good with kids. I just don't think I'm going to be, but it's like, if you know I am just horrible and completely unqualified to be a parent, why are you pursuing a relationship? Why are you getting married?
If you know you'd be a horrible parent and you have no desire to have kids, yeah, you should not date or marry someone who wants to have kids. That would not be fair. But what is wrong with two people who don't want kids getting married?
That's interesting. Because, you know, there are people, well, I don't think that everyone is called to be a parent. But that begs the question, yeah, are they then called to be married? And I think that there are plenty of married couples out there who are doing God's work, who do not have kids, who either just felt the Lord very seriously call them to not have children and focus on a ministry of whether that's going to an orphanage and serving there in Africa, and they couldn't do that with kids.
The Schraders have entered the chat. But in all seriousness, so long as you're like going on mission trips to Africa or something, then it's okay to not have kids? Okay.
Or whatever. I think there are those circumstances, but I think more so than not, it's just people deciding, I don't want to have kids and I'm going to live my life. And that becomes very selfish. Like, it's a selfish life when all you are doing is living for yourself and not pouring into something else and someone else.
I have never understood this argument. Sure, there are some people who say they don't want kids for selfish reasons, like it would mess up their life or whatever. But there are also people who give non-selfish reasons for not wanting to have kids, like not wanting to pass down certain genes. But also, I mean, if someone doesn't want kids, knowing that about themselves and not having kids is actually not selfish. I mean, what kind of life do you think a kid would have with someone who didn't want them?
And don't get me wrong, those of you who maybe are like, oh, Paul's words are really hurting me, or I hate Paul.
Wow.
Right now, I do think there are exceptions almost like across the board. No matter what topic we're talking about, there are typically some exceptions. But I agree with Morgan. I think the exceptions are more on the rare side.
Yeah.
How many of you guys that are writing in saying, I disagree with the Pope, the reason you disagree or the reason you disagree with what I'm saying is because you want to go serve poor people in a third world country, or is because you're so dedicated to just this mission, this vision that the Lord has given you that you feel like I shouldn't have kids or shouldn't have kids right now? I would say that's the rare exception. And even that, I would want to have a conversation.
Can someone please tell Paul he is not God and we don't need his permission to not have kids or his blessing on our reason to not have kids?
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I just think we've gotten into a lifestyle in the world that we live in now that's just really all about self and whatever makes you happy, whatever fills you up.
I don't think this was intentional, especially considering how hard Morgan worked to get pregnant. But here it sounds like she's saying she doesn't actually want kids herself, but she knows the selfless thing to do for the Lord or whatever would be to have kids.
Whatever, makes you feel like you're on top of the world, pursuing all your dreams. If anything's going to get in the way of that, you knock it out. So women, be feminists, don't have husbands.
Today I learned that feminism is when women don't get married.
And you do whatever you want on your own. And families, you don't need to have kids, husband and wife. Like, you guys just pursue your jobs, your careers. Just love one another. That's it. That's all you need to do. And that's just dangerous to me. And it's sad. It's a sad life.
Well, Morgan, isn't it then good for you that you, who wants kids, married Paul, who also wants kids, and now you're going to have a kid? So really, don't waste your time, effort, energy, whatever, on feeling sorry for people who don't want kids not having kids.
To me, like, babies are precious. Children are precious. They're our future. Like, we can't carry this world on without them.
I forget. Are Paul and Morgan among the fundies that think the world is ending soon? I mean, not that that stops them from procreating, but...
And the Pope said it. I like the way he worded it. He brought a few different angles in there.
I do think it is weird because we've maybe mentioned this before, but like when it comes to abortion, that's such a accepted thing in this world right now and has been for a while. But if you hear about a dog or an owner threw the puppies in a river, like, it's on all mainstream media, people are freaking out, wanting to find that person and put them in prison.
Yeah, people with normal human emotions don't tend to look kindly on animal abuse.
Goodness.
And it's like, wait, but where is that when you heard that the woman delivered her baby and threw it in the river? Like, where is that outrage?
If you're delivering the baby and then throwing it, the outrage comes.
They get really confused between abortion and infanticide.
Okay, but where's the outrage when abortion is happening every day, all of the time, all over this country, this world?
So by her own logic, Morgan becomes passionately upset whenever someone has a miscarriage.
Yeah. It's just very strange to me and concerning.
And it's a product, I think, of, I would almost call it indoctrination from just a secular humanistic perspective that tries to push that this is actually a loving thing.
So I'm just going to read this little thing here. Dropping fertility rates aren't really good or bad, says Hartnett. This thing just exists, and that's okay. Demographic shifts can be planned for, she says, and with enough planning, you might be able to have a robust economy with fewer people than you could in the past. It's not like the only solution is to raise birth rates at any cost. The most crucial thing to think about for the future is that structures are set up so people can have the lives they want, whether that means 2 kids or no kids or an entire baseball team. How can governments help people avoid having children when they don't want them and help them have children when they do? These are really important questions. There's almost nothing more important than that. But I guess Paul and Morgan rather try to shame people into parenthood, which, I really can't recommend that. Seems like a bad idea overall. Anyway, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day, and I will see you next week.